The morning of June 6, 1944. The world held its breath. On the cold, gray waters of the English Channel, thousands of soldiers waited in silence, faces pale under their helmets, rifles clutched tight, seasickness mixing with fear. These men were the first wave of Operation Overlord, the largest amphibious invasion in history. The color photos we're about to see are rare. They capture the reality not in black and white, but in life itself. The muted greens of their uniforms, the steel gray of the ocean, the reddish haze of dawn, all preserved by war correspondents who risked everything to document history. This was Omaha Beach, codenamed for the Americans, a stretch of sand that would soon become the most blood-soaked ground of the 20th century. At 5:30 a.m., the first bombardments began. The horizon flashed like distant lightning. Men whispered prayers. The air stank of diesel, cordite, and salt. Then came the order, ramp down. As the landing craft drew closer, the sea erupted with German machine gun fire. Those color photos show faces frozen between fear and duty. One man holds a photo of his wife. Another stares blankly toward the coast, as if already seeing his fate. These images, stripped of the distance of black and white, make the invasion feel painfully real. They remind us these were not just soldiers. They were sons, brothers, and fathers stepping into the unknown. In the background, the coastline of Normandy awaited, dotted with German bunkers, barbed wire, and death. The invasion had begun. The ramps dropped. Hell opened. The first wave met the full force of the German Atlantic Wall. MG-42 machine guns ripped through the mist, cutting down entire squads in seconds. Artillery shells exploded in the shallows, throwing men and shrapnel into the air. One of the color photos from Omaha captures this chaos in horrifying detail. Men half submerged in the surf, clutching their rifles, waves stained red. You can see the confusion, the disbelief. The beach they were told would be secured was not. Everything had gone wrong. The bombers had missed. The naval shells landed too far inland. The tanks meant to support the infantry had sunk before even reaching the shore. The men were alone. Pinned down by relentless gunfire, they took cover behind steel obstacles, the so-called Czech hedgehogs. One soldier later recalled, "The water was full of bodies. The living used the dead as shields." In the next image, German soldiers inside their concrete bunkers watch through narrow slits, firing down relentlessly. The defenders had the high ground, the element of surprise, and an ocean full of targets. And yet, the Americans refused to break. Despite unimaginable losses, small groups began to crawl forward, inch by inch, the weight of history pressing on every movement. Omaha was supposed to fall in hours. Instead, it nearly failed in minutes. But amid the horror, courage emerged. Raw, human, unstoppable. By mid-morning, the tide was turning, literally and figuratively. Medics waded through rising water to drag the wounded ashore. This color photo shows one such moment. A medic, face streaked with mud and blood, pressing bandages onto a fallen man while shells burst in the distance. The color captures every grain of sand, every drop of red. It's almost too real to look at. Officers who survived the first waves began regrouping what remained of their men. Small units, scattered and leaderless, started climbing the bluffs. This was no organized assault, it was survival. Under constant fire, they crawled through craters and barbed wire, tossing grenades into machine gun nests, inch by inch, gaining ground. One soldier later said, "We weren't fighting for glory, we were fighting to live another minute." The second image in this section, soldiers scaling the cliffs, smoke curling around them, shows the moment when the impossible began to shift. Behind them, the beach was littered with destroyed landing craft, twisted steel, and fallen comrades. Ahead, freedom. Every step up those cliffs was paid in blood, but once they reached the top, the tide of history changed. By mid-noon, small American flags began appearing on captured positions. Omaha was not yet secured, but it was no longer lost. By afternoon, the guns had quieted, but only just. The surviving men of the first and second waves huddled in shell holes and trenches, reloading, regrouping. In one rare color photo, soldiers sit slumped against concrete walls, their faces hollow with exhaustion. Yet in their eyes, you can see relief. The smell of gunpowder hung heavy. Smoke blurred the horizon. One private wrote later, "I don't remember what victory felt like, only that I was alive." These color photos give life to that quote. The pale skin under dirt, the trembling hands holding cigarettes, the mix of youth and trauma, it's all there. In the next image, a small group gathers for a photo. Their smiles are weak, half-forced, but real. They had survived Omaha. They didn't know that by nightfall, over 2,400 Americans would lie dead or wounded on that beach. They didn't know that their courage had turned the tide of World War II. But their faces, captured in color, tell the truth words can't. Not heroes of legend, but ordinary men who did the impossible. Today, Omaha Beach is quiet. The wind whispers through tall grass, and the waves wash gently against the same sand that once ran red. Tourists walk where soldiers fell. Children play near rusted obstacles that remain half buried in the tide. The bunkers still stand, silent witnesses to that morning in 1944. The color photos bring it all full circle. One shows the beach as it is today: blue sky, golden sand, peaceful, almost unreal. The other overlays the past on the present, ghostly figures of soldiers fading into the waves, a haunting reminder that history never truly disappears. Color brings time closer. It tears away the distance between then and now. When we see these photos, we see more than uniforms and guns. We see human stories of fear, courage, sacrifice, and brotherhood. D-Day was not just the turning point of the war. It was a day that redefined what it means to stand together in the face of darkness. So the next time you look at those color photos, remember them not as images of war, but as portraits of the price of freedom.